The stars shimmered like tiny diamonds scattered across the endless black canvas of space. Earth floated peacefully below, its blue and green surface glowing softly under the light of the sun. For years, humanity had dreamed of reaching beyond its home planet, exploring the mysteries of the universe. But today, something extraordinary was about to happen. Something no one could have predicted. High above Earth's atmosphere, a faint blip appeared on the radar screens of the International Space Monitoring Station. At first, it was dismissed as a glitch or perhaps a piece of space debris. But when the object grew larger and more distinct, alarms began to sound. The station's commander, Rachel Monroe, leaned forward in her chair, her sharp eyes scanning the data displayed before her. Her heart raced as she realized what, or rather, who was approaching. "It's the eclipse *," she whispered, almost unable to believe her own words. The *eclipse * had been one of humanity's greatest achievements. A decade earlier, it had embarked on a daring mission to explore the Andromeda Galaxy, carrying a crew of 50 brave men and women. But just months after leaving Earth, all contact with the ship had been lost. Searches were conducted, theories proposed, but nothing concrete ever surfaced. Eventually, the world accepted that the *eclipse * and its crew were gone forever. And yet here it was. Rachel turned to Dr. Ethan Carter, who stood nearby, his face pale with shock. Ethan had been part of the team that designed the *eclipse *. He knew every detail of its construction, every system within its walls. "This can't be real," he muttered, shaking his head. "It's impossible." But the readings didn't lie. The ship was massive, its sleek metallic frame unmistakable. It drifted silently through space, showing no signs of damage despite years of exposure to cosmic radiation and potential collisions. What worried Rachel most, however, was the lack of response to their hails. They tried every frequency, every protocol, but the *eclipse * remained eerily silent. "Could it be automated?" asked Lieutenant Daniel Brooks, a young officer standing beside Rachel. His voice betrayed both curiosity and unease. "Maybe," Rachel replied, though doubt lingered in her tone. "But why now? Why come back after all this time?" As they continued to monitor the ship, strange details began to emerge. Telescopic images revealed subtle changes to the *eclipse *'s exterior. Its once pristine hull now gleamed with an otherworldly sheen, as if coated in some kind of liquid metal. Energy signatures pulsed faintly around it, unlike anything recorded in human databases. Whatever had happened to the *eclipse *, it hadn't returned unchanged. Rachel called for reinforcements, knowing this situation required more than just her team. She also requested the presence of Samantha Lewis, an engineer known for her quick thinking and expertise in alien tech, a field still largely theoretical. Within hours, Samantha arrived at the station, her dark hair tied back in a practical ponytail. After reviewing the data, she frowned deeply. "There's something off about this," Samantha said, pointing to the energy readings. "If I didn't know better, I'd say this thing has been upgraded." The word hung heavy in the air. Upgraded by whom? Or what? By nightfall, plans were underway to send a boarding party to investigate. Rachel would lead the mission herself, unwilling to put anyone else in harm's way until they understood the situation fully. As she prepared to depart, Ethan approached her, his expression grim. "Be careful, Rachel," he said quietly. "Whatever you find up there, it might not be human anymore." She nodded, forcing a smile she didn't feel. "Let's hope we're wrong." With that, Rachel stepped onto the shuttle that would take her closer to the *eclipse * than anyone had been in years. The journey ahead promised answers, but also dangers beyond imagination. The shuttle carrying Rachel Monroe and her team moved steadily toward the *eclipse *, its engines humming softly in the silence of space. Through the small windows, the massive ship loomed larger with each passing second. It was both familiar and alien at the same time. The sleek curves of its design were unmistakably human-made, but the strange shimmering coating on its surface made it look like something out of a dream or a nightmare. Rachel glanced at her crew. Lieutenant Daniel Brooks sat tense in his seat, gripping the edge of his chair as if bracing for impact. Samantha Lewis, the engineer, was busy reviewing data on her tablet, her brow furrowed in concentration. Behind them, Dr. Ethan Carter stared silently at the approaching ship, his face pale and drawn. None of them spoke. The weight of what they were about to do hung heavily over everyone. When the shuttle finally docked with the Eclipse *, the airlock hissed open with a sound that felt unnaturally loud in the quiet vacuum of space. Rachel led the way, stepping cautiously into the ship's interior. Her boots clicked against the metal floor, echoing eerily in the vast emptiness. The lights inside flickered faintly, casting long shadows along the walls. Everything was still, too still. "Stay sharp," Rachel said, her voice firm but calm. She held up her scanner, checking for any signs of life or danger. So far, nothing registered. The ship seemed deserted. As they moved deeper into the corridors, the strangeness of their surroundings became more apparent. The walls, once plain and functional, now bore intricate patterns that glowed faintly, almost like veins pulsing with energy. Strange symbols etched into the surfaces caught Samantha's attention. She ran her fingers over one of them, frowning. "These aren't human," she murmured. "They look organic." "What does that mean?" Daniel asked, his voice tight with unease. "It means we're not alone here," Samantha replied without looking up. "Whoever, or whatever, did this left their mark." Rachel signaled for the group to keep moving. They passed through several rooms, each one stranger than the last. In the galley, trays of food floated untouched in zero gravity, as if abandoned mid-meal. Personal belongings lay scattered across tables and bunks, giving the impression that the crew had vanished suddenly. There were no signs of struggle, no damage to suggest an attack. It was as though the people aboard had simply disappeared into thin air. In the control room, they found something even more unsettling. The main console was active, its screens displaying streams of data written in languages none of them recognized. Ethan studied the information closely, his hands trembling slightly as he worked. After a few moments, he turned to the others, his expression grim. "This isn't just advanced technology," he said. "It's beyond anything we've ever seen. The power source alone. It's not nuclear, not solar. I don't even know how to describe it." Samantha leaned in, examining the readings herself. "If we could figure out how this works, it could change everything," she said excitedly. "But where did it come from?" Before anyone could answer, Daniel pointed to a corner of the room. A video log terminal blinked faintly, waiting to be activated. Rachel hesitated for a moment before pressing the playback button. The screen flickered to life, showing Captain Laura Hayes, the original commander of the Eclipse *. Her face was pale, her eyes wide with fear. "We found something," Laura began, her voice shaking. "Something incredible. But it's dangerous. Too dangerous. We thought we could control it. But..." She trailed off, glancing nervously over her shoulder. "It's changing us. Changing everything." The recording cut off abruptly, leaving the team staring at the blank screen in stunned silence. Rachel broke the tension first, clearing her throat. "We need to keep searching," she said firmly. "Whatever happened here, we have to understand it before we report back." No one argued. They all knew the stakes. But as they continued their exploration, an unspoken question lingered in the air. What exactly had the crew of the Eclipse * discovered, and at what cost? The team pressed on, their footsteps echoing through the eerily silent corridors of the Eclipse *. Each step felt heavier than the last, as if the weight of the ship's secrets was pressing down on them. Rachel led the way, her scanner held tightly in one hand and a flashlight in the other. The faint glow from the walls did little to dispel the growing sense of unease. They entered what appeared to be the engineering bay, a large room filled with machinery that looked both familiar and foreign. Samantha immediately went to work, her fingers flying over control panels as she tried to make sense of the systems. Her eyes widened as she studied the readings. This shouldn't be possible, she muttered under her breath. The energy output here is off the charts. It's like the ship is alive. What do you mean, alive? Daniel asked, his voice tinged with skepticism. He moved closer to get a better look at the console, but Samantha waved him back. I don't know yet, she admitted, but whatever's powering this ship isn't just fuel or electricity. It's something else entirely. Ethan joined her, peering over her shoulder. His expression grew darker as he processed the data. This could explain why the crew disappeared, he said quietly. If they were exposed to this kind of energy for too long, it might have changed them. Changed them how? Rachel asked sharply, turning to face him. Ethan hesitated before answering. I don't know. Maybe physically, maybe mentally, or both. Whatever happened, it wasn't natural. Before anyone could respond, a low hum began to resonate through the room. At first, it was barely noticeable, but it quickly grew louder, vibrating through the floor and walls. The lights flickered again, casting strange shadows that danced across the ceiling. Rachel raised a hand, signaling for everyone to stay still. Is this normal? Daniel whispered, gripping the handle of his sidearm nervously. No, Samantha replied, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. It's reacting to us, like it knows we're here. As suddenly as it had started, the humming stopped. The room fell silent once more, but the feeling of being watched lingered. Rachel glanced around, her instincts screaming that something, or someone, was nearby. She motioned for the team to regroup near the door. We need to find more answers, she said firmly. If there are logs or records left behind, we have to locate them. Fast. They split up briefly, searching different sections of the bay. It wasn't long before Daniel called out, his voice tinged with urgency. Over here. I think I found something. The others rushed to join him. He stood in front of a storage locker, its door slightly ajar. Inside, they discovered stacks of personal belongings, clothes, journals, even photographs. But what caught their attention most was a small handheld device lying on top of the pile. It pulsed faintly with the same glowing energy they'd seen throughout the ship. Don't touch it, Rachel warned as Daniel reached for it. Instead, she carefully picked it up using a piece of cloth. The device emitted a soft chime, projecting a holographic image into the air. It showed Captain Laura Hayes again, this time standing alongside several members of her crew. They looked different, paler, their eyes glowing faintly, almost like they weren't entirely human anymore. We tried to resist, Laura's voice said, trembling with emotion. But it's inside us now. We can't fight it. If anyone finds this, don't trust what you see. Don't trust us. The message ended abruptly, leaving the team staring at each other in stunned silence. Ethan broke the quiet first, his voice barely above a whisper. Whatever they encountered, it didn't just take them. It transformed them. Rachel nodded grimly. And now it's waiting for us. She tucked the device into her pack, determined to analyze it later. For now, they needed to keep moving. Every second spent aboard the Eclipse felt like another step deeper into danger. But as they left the engineering bay and continued their search, none of them could shake the feeling that they weren't alone, and that whatever had claimed the crew might not be done yet. The team moved cautiously through the Eclipse, their footsteps muffled by the thick silence that seemed to press in on them from all sides. Rachel led the way, her flashlight cutting through the dimness as they ventured deeper into the ship. The air felt heavier now, charged with an energy that made the hairs on their necks stand on end. None of them spoke. The tension was too thick, the sense of being watched too strong. They entered what appeared to be a crew quarters area. Rows of bunks lined the walls, some neatly made, others left in disarray as if the occupants had fled in a hurry. Personal items were scattered everywhere. Books, tablets, even children's toys brought aboard by crew members who'd hoped to keep reminders of home close. It was a haunting sight, a frozen moment of life interrupted. Samantha knelt beside one of the beds, picking up a small journal. Its pages were filled with hurried handwriting, the ink smudged in places as though written in haste. She flipped through it silently, her lips moving as she read fragments aloud. "They kept trying to fight it," she said softly. "Whoever it is. They thought they could control it. But something changed. They started hearing voices." "Voices?" Daniel asked, his voice tight. He glanced around nervously, half expecting someone, or something, to step out of the shadows. "Yes," Samantha replied, flipping to another page. "It says here they couldn't sleep because the voices wouldn't stop. And then, their bodies began to change." Rachel stepped closer, her expression grim. "Changed how?" Samantha hesitated before answering. "They don't say exactly. Just that it hurt. A lot." She closed the journal and stood, brushing dust off her gloves. Whatever happened to them, it wasn't quick or easy. Ethan had wandered to the far end of the room, where a video log terminal sat embedded in the wall. He pressed the playback button without hesitation. The screen flickered to life, showing Captain Laura Hayes once more. This time, her appearance was startling. Her skin was pale and translucent, her eyes glowing faintly with an unnatural light. Behind her, other crew members stood motionless, their faces blank, almost hollow. "We tried to warn you," Laura said, her voice barely recognizable. It sounded distorted, layered with echoes that sent chills down everyone's spines. "But it's too late for us. A higher intelligence. It offered us knowledge, power beyond imagining. But there was a price." She paused, glancing over her shoulder as if afraid of being overheard. "It's inside us now. Growing. Changing us. We can feel it spreading, rewriting everything we are. If you're seeing this, run. Don't let it find you." The recording cut off abruptly, plunging the room back into silence. For a long moment, no one moved. Ethan finally broke the stillness, his voice trembling. "This isn't just alien technology. It's alive, sentient, and it's using them." Rachel clenched her fists, forcing herself to stay focused. "We need to figure out what this higher intelligence is, and why it targeted the Eclipse asterisk. If it's still aboard, we're in serious danger." Daniel shook his head, his fear giving way to frustration. "Why didn't they destroy the ship? Why bring it back here?" "Maybe they wanted us to find it," Samantha suggested quietly. "Or maybe they wanted to bring it home. To Earth." Rachel asked sharply. The thought sent a chill through her. If whatever had taken the crew intended to follow the Eclipse asterisk back to its point of origin, humanity could be facing a threat unlike anything they'd ever encountered. Before anyone could respond, the lights in the room flickered violently, plunging them into near darkness. A low hum filled the air again, louder this time, vibrating deep in their chests. Rachel raised her flashlight, sweeping it across the room. Shadows danced unnaturally along the walls, twisting and shifting as if alive. "We need to move," she said firmly, ushering the team toward the door. Now, as they hurried out of the quarters, none of them noticed the faint glow emanating from the vents above. Something was watching them, waiting. And it wasn't done yet. The team moved quickly through the narrow corridors of the Eclipse asterisk, their footsteps echoing louder than before. The hum that had chased them from the crew quarters grew fainter, but the oppressive feeling of being watched never left. Rachel led the way, her flashlight beam cutting through the dimness as they navigated the maze-like ship. Every corner they turned felt like stepping further into a trap. Samantha broke the silence first. "If this higher intelligence is real," she said, glancing over her shoulder nervously, "then it's not just alien. It's predatory." Rachel nodded without slowing her pace. "We've seen what it did to the crew. But why bring the ship back? What does it want?" Ethan spoke up, his voice low and thoughtful. Maybe it's not about us. Maybe the Eclipse was just a vessel, a carrier for whatever this thing is. If it wanted to spread. He didn't finish the sentence, but no one needed him to. The implication hung heavy in the air. Earth could already be at risk. They reached the communications hub, a large room filled with consoles and screens. Most of the equipment looked unfamiliar now, altered by the same strange energy that pulsed through the rest of the ship. Samantha immediately got to work, her fingers flying across the controls as she tried to access any remaining data. "Anything useful?" Rachel asked after a few moments. "I'm picking up something," Samantha replied, her brow furrowed in concentration. "It's a signal," repeating over and over again. "What kind of signal?" Daniel asked, leaning closer. "It's coordinates," Samantha said, her voice tinged with both excitement and unease. She pulled up a star map on one of the screens, highlighting a distant point in space. "Looks like it's pointing to a system deep in uncharted territory." Rachel studied the map, her jaw tightening. Could this be where the crew encountered the higher intelligence? "It's possible," Ethan said, "but sending a mission, there would be suicide. We don't even know what we're dealing with here." Before Rachel could respond, the lights flickered again, and the hum returned, louder this time. The screens around them began to display strange symbols, glowing brightly against the darkened walls. The air seemed to vibrate, making it hard to focus. "Something's reacting to us," Samantha muttered, backing away from the console, "like it knows we're onto it." Daniel raised his weapon instinctively, scanning the room for any sign of movement. "What do we do? Fight or run?" "We can't fight something we can't see," Rachel snapped, her tone sharp but controlled. "We need to get off this ship and report back. Now." As if in response, the hum escalated into a deafening roar. The floor beneath their feet trembled slightly, and the glowing symbols began to pulse faster, almost like a heartbeat. Ethan grabbed Samantha's arm, pulling her away from the console. "We're out of time," he said urgently. "Whatever this thing is, it's waking up." Rachel motioned for the group to head toward the exit, but as they turned, the door slammed shut with a metallic clang. The team froze, staring at the sealed entrance. The hum grew louder still, filling the room until it felt like their ears might burst. Then suddenly, the noise stopped. The silence that followed was even worse, pressing down on them like a physical weight. The glowing symbols on the walls shifted, forming new patterns that seemed to writhe and twist. A low guttural sound emerged, not from the walls, but from somewhere deeper within the ship. Rachel stepped forward, her voice firm despite the fear creeping up her spine. "We need another way out. Follow me." She led the team to a maintenance hatch on the far side of the room. With Daniel's help, they'd pried it open, revealing a narrow crawl space. One by one, they climbed inside, leaving the eerie glow of the communications hub behind. As they crawled through the tight passage, none of them noticed the faint shimmer that appeared in the corners of the room they'd just abandoned. Something was following them, unseen but undeniably present. Whatever it wasn't done playing its game. The narrow maintenance tunnel was cold and dark, the only light coming from Rachel's flashlight as she led the way. The metal walls pressed in on them, making it hard to breathe. Samantha crawled close behind, her hands trembling as she clutched a small tablet she'd managed to grab from the communications hub. Ethan brought up the rear, his face pale and drawn, his mind racing with thoughts of what they had just escaped, or what might still be following them. "Do you think we lost it?" Daniel whispered, his voice barely audible over the sound of their movements. He glanced back nervously, half expecting something to burst through the hatch behind them. "We can't afford to assume that," Rachel replied sharply. "Keep moving." The group pushed forward in silence, their progress slow and awkward in the cramped space. After what felt like an eternity, they reached a junction where the tunnel split into two paths. Rachel paused, shining her flashlight down each one. Both looked identical, dark, narrow, and uninviting. "Which way?" Daniel asked, his voice tight with frustration. Samantha checked the tablet, its screen glowing faintly in the darkness. "The signal coordinates are this way," she said, pointing to the left path. "If we follow it, we might find more answers." Rachel hesitated for a moment before nodding. "Let's go, but stay alert." They continued down the left tunnel, the air growing colder with every step. The hum that had haunted them earlier was gone now, replaced by an oppressive silence that made it hard to focus. Every creak of the metal walls sounded impossibly loud, and every shadow seemed to shift when they weren't looking. After a few minutes, the tunnel opened into a larger chamber. It was dimly lit by faint blue lights embedded in the ceiling, casting an eerie glow over the room. At the center stood a massive device, a towering structure covered in the same glowing symbols they'd seen earlier. Its surface pulsed rhythmically, almost like it was breathing. "What is that thing?" Daniel asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know," Samantha replied, her eyes wide with awe and fear. She approached cautiously, studying the device from a distance. "But it's definitely the source of the energy readings. This could be what transformed the crew." Ethan stepped closer, his expression grim. "If it's still active, then whatever did this might not be gone." Before anyone could respond, a low rumble shook the chamber. The lights flickered, and the device began to emit a soft, melodic hum. The sound was strangely beautiful, almost hypnotic. Rachel raised her hand, signaling for everyone to stay back. "We need to leave now," she said firmly. But as they turned to retreat, the entrance they had come through sealed itself shut with a metallic clang. The team froze, staring at the now closed hatch. The hum grew louder, filling the room until it vibrated in their chests. Then, without warning, the glowing symbols on the device flared brightly, bathing the chamber in blinding light. When the light faded, the team found themselves no longer alone. Standing at the edges of the room were shadowy figures, humanoid in shape but distorted, their forms shimmering as if they weren't entirely solid. Their faces were blank, their eyes glowing faintly with the same unnatural light that had marked Captain Laura Hayes in the video logs. Rachel instinctively raised her weapon, though she knew it would do little against beings like these. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. One of the figures stepped forward, its movements smooth and deliberate. When it spoke, its voice was layered with echoes, resonating in a way that made it impossible to tell if it was male or female. "You seek answers," it said, its tone neither friendly nor hostile. "But knowledge comes at a cost." Ethan took a step forward, his hands raised in a gesture of peace. "We don't want to hurt you. We just want to understand." The figure tilted its head slightly, as if considering his words. Then it gestured toward the device at the center of the room. "This is our gift and our curse. To wield it is to change. Are you prepared for such a burden?" Rachel tightened her grip on her weapon, her instincts screaming that this was a trap. "What do you want from us?" The figure didn't answer. Instead, it raised a hand, and the device began to pulse faster, its light growing brighter. The air around them crackled with energy, and the team stumbled back, shielding their eyes. "We can't stay here," Rachel shouted over the rising hum. "Move." The team scrambled toward the far side of the chamber, searching desperately for another exit. Behind them, the figures remained motionless, watching silently as the humans fled. As the hatch finally gave way and they tumbled out into the corridor beyond, Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that they were being let go, not out of mercy. The team stumbled out of the chamber, their hearts pounding as they slammed the hatch shut behind them. The corridor beyond was dark and silent, a sharp contrast to the eerie glow and hum of the room they had just escaped. Rachel leaned against the wall, catching her breath while Daniel and Samantha worked quickly to secure the hatch with tools from their packs. Ethan stood nearby, his face pale and his hands trembling. "What were those things?" Daniel asked, his voice shaking. "Were they human?" They used to be, Ethan replied quietly, his eyes distant. That's what happens when you let something like that energy take hold. It changes you, body and mind. Rachel straightened up, forcing herself to focus. We can't think about that now. We need to get off this ship before it's too late. Samantha nodded, glancing down at the tablet in her hands. If we follow the signal coordinates, we might find a way to shut this thing down, or at least figure out how to stop it from spreading. Or it could lead us right into more trouble, Daniel muttered under his breath. It's our only option, Rachel said firmly. Let's move. They pressed on, navigating the twisting corridors of the Eclipse *. The ship felt different now, alive in a way that made every step feel heavier. The walls seemed to pulse faintly, and the air carried a strange metallic taste. Every sound, their footsteps, the hum of the ship's systems, felt amplified, as if the vessel itself was listening. As they neared the docking bay where their shuttle awaited, a sudden vibration rippled through the floor. The lights flickered violently, plunging them into near darkness for a moment. When the illumination returned, glowing symbols began to appear on the walls around them, spreading rapidly like cracks in glass. They're following us, Samantha whispered, her voice tight with fear. She pointed ahead, where the corridor ended in a large open area, the docking bay. But standing between them and their shuttle were more of the shadowy figures, their forms shimmering and indistinct. Rachel raised her weapon, though she knew it wouldn't do much good. Stay close, she ordered, her voice steady despite the knot of dread in her stomach. One of the figures stepped forward, its glowing eyes fixed on the group. It spoke in the same blared, echoing voice they'd heard before. You cannot leave. The knowledge must remain. We don't want your knowledge, Rachel shot back, her tone sharp. We just want to go home. The figure tilted its head slightly, as if considering her words. Then it gestured toward the shuttle. Your vessel is no longer yours. It belongs to us now. Daniel cursed under his breath. Great. So we're stuck here. Before anyone could respond, the shuttle's engines roared to life, its metal frame vibrating as it prepared for launch, all without anyone aboard. Samantha gasped, clutching the tablet tighter. It's activating on its own. We need to stop it. Ethan shouted, panic edging into his voice. If that thing gets back to Earth. Rachel didn't hesitate. She signaled for the team to follow her as she sprinted toward the shuttle, dodging past the shadowy figures that moved to block their path. The beams didn't try to stop them directly, but instead seemed to shift and fade, appearing and disappearing unpredictably. When they reached the shuttle, Rachel grabbed a control panel near the hatch and began entering commands. I'm locking it down, she said through gritted teeth. If we can disable the engines, we might be able to buy ourselves some time. But the controls weren't responding. The shuttle systems were overridden by the same alien energy coursing through the Eclipse *. Samantha stepped forward, her fingers flying over the panel. Let me try, she said, her voice calm despite the chaos around them. Behind them, the shadowy figures closed in, their glowing eyes fixed on the humans. One of them spoke again, its tone colder this time. Resistance is futile. You will serve the higher purpose. Rachel turned to face them, her expression hard. Not today. With a final burst of effort, Samantha managed to override the shuttle systems, shutting down the engines just as they were about to ignite. The hum of the machinery died away, leaving the docking bay eerily silent once more. For a moment, the shadowy figures simply stood there, watching. Then, one by one, they began to dissolve into the air, their forms fading until nothing remained. We did it, Daniel said, exhaling sharply. But Rachel shook her head. No, she said grimly. We just bought ourselves a little more time. And deep within the ship, the glowing symbols continued to spread, pulsing faintly as if waiting for their next move. The docking bay fell silent after the shadowy figures disappeared. But the team didn't dare relax. Rachel kept her weapon raised, her eyes scanning the area for any sign of movement. The shuttle sat motionless now, its engines dead, but none of them trusted that the danger had truly passed. Every corner of the bay seemed darker than before, the shadows thicker and more menacing. "We need to figure out our next move," Rachel said, lowering her voice. "We can't stay here." Samantha nodded, clutching the tablet tightly. "If we can't use the shuttle, we'll have to find another way to send a message back to Earth. Maybe we can rig one of the ship's communication arrays." Ethan stepped closer, his face pale but determined. "Even if we manage to send a message, what do we say? There's alien tech on board that could destroy us all. They'll think we're insane, or worse, they'll send reinforcements who'll be walking straight into a trap." "He's right," Daniel said grimly. "Whoever, or whatever, is running this show doesn't want us leaving. If we alert Earth, we might be inviting disaster." Rachel frowned, weighing their options. "Then we keep this between us. For now. But we still need to warn them somehow. And we need to understand what we're dealing with." Samantha glanced down at the tablet, her fingers tracing the faint glow of the signal coordinates. "What if we follow the signal? It's leading somewhere, maybe to where the higher intelligence originated. If we can find answers there, we might stand a chance." "It's too risky," Ethan argued. "We don't even know how far it goes or what's waiting for us. And staying here isn't exactly safe either," Rachel shot back. "We've seen what this thing can do. If we don't act, it'll only get worse." After a moment of tense silence, Samantha spoke up again. "There's something else." She tapped the tablet, pulling up a new set of readings. "This energy, it's not just spreading through the ship. It's growing, feeding off something." "Feeding off what?" Daniel asked, his voice tight. "Us," Samantha replied quietly. "Every time we interact with it, every time we try to fight it, it gets stronger. Like it's using our fear, or maybe our curiosity, to fuel itself." Rachel's jaw tightened as she processed the information. "Then we stop giving it what it wants. No more interference. We focus on survival and finding a way to neutralize it." The group agreed reluctantly and began moving toward the nearest control room, hoping to access the ship's systems without triggering another encounter. As they navigated the corridors, the walls continued to pulse faintly with the same eerie glow, the glowing symbols spreading like veins across the metal surfaces. Each step felt heavier, the air thick with an almost suffocating tension. When they reached the control room, Samantha got to work immediately, her hands flying over the console. After a few moments, she let out a frustrated sigh. "It's locked me out. Whatever this thing is, it's smarter than I thought." "Can you bypass it?" Rachel asked, leaning over her shoulder. "I can try," Samantha replied, her voice strained. "But it's going to take time." As Samantha worked, Ethan wandered to the far side of the room, staring at the glowing symbols etched into the walls. He reached out hesitantly, his fingers brushing against one of them. Instantly, a sharp pain shot through his hand, and he yanked it back with a gasp. "What happened?" Rachel asked sharply, turning to look at him. "It burned me," Ethan muttered, cradling his hand, like it was alive. Before anyone could respond, the lights flickered violently, plunging the room into darkness. When they came back on, the glowing symbols had spread further, covering nearly every surface. The low hum filled the air, growing louder by the second. "We're out of time," Rachel said, her voice firm. "Grab what you can and let's go." Samantha quickly unplugged the tablet, stuffing it into her pack as the others prepared to leave. But as they turned toward the door, the hum escalated into a deafening roar. The floor trembled beneath their feet, and the walls began to shift and twist unnaturally, as if the ship itself was coming alive around them. "This isn't happening," Daniel whispered, his voice trembling. "It is," Rachel replied, gripping her weapon tightly. "And we need to move. Now." As they rushed out of the control room, none of them noticed the faint shimmer following them down the corridor. Whatever force controlled the Eclipse Asterisk wasn't done playing its game. Not yet. The team ran through the twisting corridors of the asterisk Eclipse asterisk, their footsteps echoing loudly in the oppressive silence. The ship seemed to shift around them, its walls pulsing faintly with the same unnatural glow that had spread throughout. Every turn they took felt like stepping deeper into a nightmare. Rachel led the way, her flashlight cutting through the dimness as she tried to guide them toward an escape route, or at least somewhere safe to regroup. Behind her, Samantha clutched the tablet tightly, her knuckles white. "It's adapting," she said breathlessly. "Every time we try to fight it or outsmart it, it learns faster." "Then we stop fighting," Rachel replied sharply. "We find a way to shut it down for good." "But how?" Daniel asked, his voice tinged with desperation. "We've seen what happens when we interfere. It just gets stronger." Ethan, still cradling his burned hand, spoke up quietly. Maybe the only way to stop it is from the inside." Rachel stopped abruptly, turning to face him. "What are you saying?" Ethan hesitated, his expression grim. "This energy, it's alive, sentient. If we can't destroy it directly, maybe we can overload it, trigger some kind of self-destruct sequence, but someone would have to stay behind to make sure it works." "No," Rachel snapped immediately. "Absolutely not. We're not leaving anyone here." "It might be our only chance," Ethan insisted, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. "If I can access the core, the source of this energy, I can rig it to collapse. It'll take me with it, but it'll neutralize the threat." Samantha stepped forward, shaking her head. "There has to be another way. We can figure something else out." "There isn't time," Ethan said firmly. His gaze shifted to Rachel. "You know I'm right. If we don't do this now, it'll reach Earth, and then there won't be any stopping it." For a long moment, no one spoke. The hum of the ship grew louder, vibrating through the floor beneath their feet. The glowing symbols on the walls pulsed faster, almost like they were reacting to the conversation. Finally, Rachel let out a slow breath. "If you're sure about this—" "I am," Ethan interrupted, his tone leaving no room for argument. "Just promise me one thing. Get everyone back safely. Tell Earth what happened here. Make sure they understand the danger." Rachel nodded reluctantly. "We'll honor your sacrifice." With that, Ethan turned and began moving in the opposite direction, heading deeper into the heart of the ship. The others watched him go, their faces pale and drawn. Samantha wiped away a tear, while Daniel clenched his fists tightly, anger and helplessness warring within him. "Come on," Rachel said finally, her voice thick with emotion. "We need to keep moving." They pressed on, retracing their steps toward the docking bay. As they moved, the ship seemed to grow more unstable. Lights flickered wildly, and sections of the corridor warped unnaturally, forcing them to climb over twisted metal beams. Behind them, the low rumble of collapsing systems grew louder, a sign that Ethan's plan was already underway. When they finally reached the shuttle, Rachel wasted no time getting everyone aboard. She powered up the engines, her hands trembling slightly as she prepared for liftoff. Through the window, she could see parts of the Eclipse breaking apart, consumed by the very energy they had tried so hard to contain. As the shuttle detached and began its ascent, Samantha stared out at the disintegrating ship, tears streaming down her face. "Do you think he made it in time?" she whispered. "He did," Rachel replied softly, her voice heavy with grief. "He gave us our chance." The shuttle cleared the wreckage just as a blinding flash erupted from the Eclipse. The shockwave rocked the small craft violently, but Rachel held steady, guiding them toward safety. When the light faded, all that remained of the massive vessel was a cloud of debris drifting silently in the void. No one spoke as they set a course for Earth. The weight of what they had witnessed, and what they had lost, hung heavily over them. They had survived, but the cost had been immense. And deep within the remnants of the Eclipse, a faint signal continued to pulse faintly, undetected by the departing shuttle. Whatever force had controlled the ship wasn't entirely gone, and it wasn't done watching. The shuttle carrying Rachel, Samantha, and Daniel drifted silently through space, its engines humming softly as it made its way back to Earth. The view outside the windows was serene, stars twinkling against the blackness. But inside the craft, the mood was anything but peaceful. No one spoke. The weight of what they had just endured pressed down on them like an invisible force. Ethan's sacrifice weighed heavily on their minds, a constant reminder of how close they had come to disaster, and how much they still didn't understand. Rachel sat in the pilot's seat, her hands gripping the controls tightly even though the ship was on autopilot. Her thoughts kept drifting back to the eclipse, to the glowing symbols and the eerie hum that had seemed alive. She couldn't shake the feeling that destroying the ship hadn't been enough, that something far greater was still out there, watching, waiting. Samantha sat nearby, staring at the tablet she had salvaged from the eclipse. Its screen displayed fragments of data, pieces of the alien signal Ethan had tried so hard to neutralize. "There's still so much we don't know," she murmured, more to herself than anyone else. "What if this isn't over?" "It has to be," Daniel replied sharply, though his voice lacked conviction. He leaned forward, rubbing his temples. "We blew up the ship. That thing is gone. It has to be." But Samantha shook her head slowly. "You saw what happened down there. That energy, it wasn't just part of the ship. It was alive, intelligent. Something like that doesn't just disappear." Rachel turned slightly, glancing at both of them. "If it's still out there, we need to prepare. Humanity needs to know what we're up against." Daniel sighed, slumping back in his seat. "And how do you plan to explain this? Hey, by the way, we destroyed a $1 billion spaceship because it got possessed by alien tech. They'll lock us up before we finish the sentence." "He's right," Samantha admitted reluctantly. "But we can't stay silent either. If another encounter happens, and it might, we need to be ready." As the hours passed, the shuttle drew closer to Earth. The blue-green orb grew larger in the distance, a comforting sight after everything they had faced. But instead of relief, Rachel felt a growing sense of unease. When they landed, they would have to make decisions, choices that could shape humanity's future for better or worse. When they finally touched down at a secure docking station, officials swarmed the shuttle, eager to hear their report. Rachel stepped out first, her expression grim as she faced the crowd. She delivered a carefully edited version of events, focusing on the danger posed by the alien technology without revealing too many details about the higher intelligence or Ethan's sacrifice. Later, alone in her quarters, Rachel replayed the mission in her mind. She thought about Captain Laura Hayes and her final warning, about the shadowy figures that had once been human, and about Ethan, who had given everything to protect them. Her terminal beeped softly, pulling her from her thoughts. A message appeared on the screen, a faint signal intercepted during their journey home. It matched the coordinates Samantha had found aboard the eclipse. Rachel stared at it, her heart sinking. The signal wasn't just repeating anymore. It was changing, evolving into something new. She closed the terminal, leaning back in her chair. For now, the world was safe. But for how long? Whatever force had claimed the eclipse wasn't gone. It was learning, adapting, waiting. And someday, it would return.